There is this phase where first you're working with JV partners, then you don't need the JV as much because you start building your own buyer base.
Mm.
And you're like kind of in that place of where you're going to break up with your JV. And that's inevitable. It's going to probably happen after maybe 6 to 9 months of doing deals.
This is the real estate investing experience. We get it. Real estate can be rough sometimes, and that's why we bring in the experts to talk about the experiences you won't hear anywhere else with your hosts, John Cohen and Chris Grinzik.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Experience. I'm your host, Chris Grinzik. With me, as always, is John Cohen. How we doing?
We're good. I got no complaints. We got a busy day, but excited about the upcoming episode.
Yes. Happy to learn a little bit. Flipping, as some people know and some people won't, is an area I completely failed in. It's where I got started. So I'm always happy to hear how people do it well and things I probably could have done better. Didn't do it long enough to really give it a shot, but it's always interesting to hear how people succeeded where I failed. So very excited to hear that part of it and to hear her entire story. And with that being said, Lauren, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Awesome. So can you take a couple minutes, introduce yourself to everybody, your story, your journey, your experience, kind of what you do?
Awesome. Well, my name is Lauren Hardy. I live in Southern California, specifically Orange County.
Mm-hmm.
I am known for being a virtual investor. So I invest in areas that are outside of my hometown. And the reason I do that is because where I live is very expensive and it's very hard to get deals here. So the first thing I caught on is that you said that you failed at flipping. And before we started the show, you told me you live in Long Island.
Mm-hmm.
And so I put both of those together, and it's probably because of where you lived.
Partially.
Partially.
It's one of the pillars, yes.
Right. So I had, I could probably relate to you. I had, similar market, a high price market. It was very difficult to get deals that had the margins that, I wanted to make that were even just to safely flip a house. So I started flipping homes in out-of-state markets, and I've been doing that. I've been a real estate flipper investor for about 8 years. I've been 100% virtual for the last 4 years. Okay. And currently, I also have a coaching program. I coach with Wholesaling Inc., and I host their podcast as well.
Awesome. Love it. So what was it like for you at the beginning? Because I'm sure there'll be a ton of similarities between myself and you, as well as I'm sure other people listening, that led you into, I'm assuming you started trying to flip or wholesale, and I'm assuming started locally or maybe didn't, and then what eventually led you to branch out into other areas?
Yeah. So when I first started, we were just getting out of a recession, and there was still quite a bit of seller distress in my area. This was, just to give you an idea or perspective, it was 2012. So there was still a ton of seller distress, even in Orange County. I was able to, do the typical marketing methods that you hear about, like direct mail, for example. I could send out direct mail, and it wouldn't take that much direct mail to get me one deal that I could flip and, make a pretty good return on our money invested. But what happened is, as the years went by and as the market started heating up, we were, coming out of the recession. It was good for our economy. The California real estate market, Orange County specifically, and LA, Inland Empire, that whole area was, on fire, doing very well. So what happened was it took more and more money in marketing to get that one deal. And then that one deal, the profits started shrinking. And it got to a point where my deal flow was so irregular, I was having a hard time sleeping at night. And I just could not really get, my marketing to perform the way it did. I grew really frustrated because I had actually a lot of friends that were in different markets, people that I just networked with online on Facebook forums and things like that. And they weren't having the same problems I was having. They were still, closing like 5 deals, a month, and whether they're wholesaling or flipping, it didn't really matter. They were just killing it. And I was like sitting here going like, am I doing something wrong? Like, why am I having such a difficult time. And like, this person is working like half as hard as I am. And they have like always a consistent pipeline of flips or wholesales coming in. I did not, I mean, for the longest time, I thought it was like, maybe it was me. And after a while, I realized it has to be the market, because, you know, like, I'm doing all the same things they're doing. And with like enough conversations of like, well, how many mail pieces are you sending out? Okay, well, how many offers have you made this week? Like, you know, after enough comparison, I realized it really was just where it was located. So California, at that time, there was very much like a feast or famine, you know, mentality with deals, with house flips. I personally, like, yeah, it was great that if I did get a flip, it would be a pretty big payday. But that stage of famine was very difficult emotionally. You know, it's really hard to go 3 months, 4 months and not have a deal in the pipeline, and you spent $10,000 in direct mail and not knowing, like, this might be it. Maybe this is it. Direct mail doesn't work anymore in California. Forget it. So I basically said, okay, I'm going to diversify. I'm going to take half my marketing budget and I'm going to put it in another area. So that was my first just start with virtual. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no mentors on it. I didn't know anyone who went virtual. I did it out of pure necessity. So that was 4 years ago. A lot of trial and error, different territories. I did a lot of different things to like figure it out and make it work. And after, you know, a while, I got really good at it. And now, you know, I would consider myself a pretty, I don't know, a dominant in my market person, even though I don't actually live there. I'm one of the bigger wholesalers in the territories I'm at. And I was able to do it, you know, I'm able to do it in California. I never look at properties. We wholesale every deal. We don't look at them. We don't really need to be there. I don't have to go visit my territories. So that's where I'm at now.
Awesome. I love it. I think it was very interesting to hear you talk about talking to other people and seeing that you were basically doing a lot of the same things and not getting the same results. We started trying to flip in January of 2016. So a little over 4 years ago. Wow, it doesn't even feel that long. And we got introduced through a course. So we bought a program. And one of the staples of the course was, hey, there's going to be a coach in your location that's going to show you exactly how they do it, what they do, and just help you along the way. And the number one reason we failed was definitely lack of execution on our part, 100%. We decided to pivot into something else. That was a conscious decision. So I'm never going to blame something else. However, there was nobody within 50, 60, 70 miles that was doing it, that was with this course. And the closest person we would talk to was like, I think somebody in Pennsylvania or down in Maryland,
Wow.
I forget. And it was, oh, just do this, just do this, just do that, and it'll come. And it was like, no, like, that's not quite it. And even in the first seminar I went to, it was good because they would take you around to these houses that were potential flips, and they were listed, so they weren't really, but you saw the problems with houses, and they would introduce you and point stuff out to you. But then they would be talking about the cost of renovation and like the cost of a new kitchen. And we're like, I didn't know, because I was 24 at the time, and I knew nothing before that. But my mom had owned our house forever. My cousin was an agent and had done some work, and they would say like, oh, you know, it's like $10,000-$15,000 for a new kitchen. They're like, what are you talking about? That's not even close to what it's going to cost for a kitchen. And that was some of the problems we ran into, where the systems they put in place were well set up, but they weren't designed for the area like us. So that's where I say it was the lack of execution, where we could have 100% figured out all the costs and utilized the systems they had. However, we saw other problems like yourself of, we didn't feel we would have gotten the ROI on our money. We felt the margins were razor thin. So even though you could make 30, 50, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars, because there's $1 million homes in Long Island, and they're all over the place, but your margins are going to be 5, 10, 15% maybe. So it's, if you make one error percentage wise, yeah, maybe you would have made 100, but now it's down to 20, and you're hanging on by a thread. You've put up a lot more money to get that. So that's why we kind of looked at it and said there was a lot of challenges for us. And instead of, we quasi almost flipped. And that's how I met John, because we were going to buy tax deeds in Philly. That's what he had been doing. We were going to flip those. just didn't work out, and then eventually moved into the multifamily stuff. But it was very interesting to hear from you. It makes me feel a little bit better, to be perfectly honest, that you were doing it earlier and you kind of saw that trend in a very similar area happening to you, and eventually you shifted out because it just became impossible, basically.
Oh yeah. Well, it's so funny because you just said so many things that I'm like, I can literally relate. So the first thing you said, I went fully virtual 2016.
Okay.
That was when it got
I should
really
have
hard.
paid you back then instead.
I know. No, I mean, we could have just commiserated. We could have been like, why are our markets so hard to flip in? Like, it was 2016 where I was like, okay, like I have to find another market because the high price markets like Long Island, a lot of my students are New York, New Jersey, Long Island, California. Like a lot of my students are in the high price markets.
Mm-hmm.
So we get it. Like I went through the same thing. You were just on the other side of the country in 2016. The other thing is I had this same issue where I was buying into coaching programs and the mentors, the educators did not live in the same type of market I lived in. They did not live in a high price market. They were living in these kind of like tier 1 or tier 2 like markets where they're very balanced markets. They, you could actually get the rent to price ratio of 1%. That's just like a little quick rule of thumb I say, is if you're in a 1% rent to price ratio, like you have no idea what an OC investor is going through. It is completely different, no perspective at all. There's just not enough seller distress in the areas that we live in. It all boils down to being a successful flipper or wholesaler. You have to be able to get a house at a discount that enables you to fix it up and resell it, or just sell your contract for a profit. Mm-hmm. To be able to get that home at a discount, you have to be able to convince a seller to take a discount on their home. And usually that discount is like 20%, maybe 30%. When you're trying to convince a seller on, say, $120,000 house, like 20-30% is like not a big deal to them. Like that's kind of like, whatever, it's a drop in the bucket, given what they're going through, maybe with their situation, their motivation, whatever their motivation is. You can probably convince them to shave off 20 grand. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't feel bad. It doesn't feel predatory. But like, if you're trying to do that to like a seller that's like got a $600,000, $700,000 house, and you're trying to convince them to give you $120,000 of their equity, they're going to tell you to pound sand most of the time. So that's what we were going through. And that's
yeah, so I talk about it all the time. The last house I flipped in Long Island was around 2013, 2014, give or take. Mm-hmm. And it was right in 2014. And the problem is, you just nailed it, and people don't talk about it. Leaving 20 grand, 30 grand on the table for $100,000, $200,000 house isn't the end of the world to them. Additionally, the buyer pool for $100,000 and a $200,000 house, mortgages and lendings, and how qualified are they, right? You're coming in with cash, no headaches, I'll buy the house. It's a lot easier than for par with them. Additionally, in an Orange County, in a Long Island, in a Miami, in the super high end areas, mm-hmm. the demand for the product, a $600,000 house, a $700,000 house, forget trying to take $120,000, $140,000 off the top. That alone is difficult, right? Very difficult to convince someone to not take that. But if they go to market with it at a 50%, instead of a $140,000 discount, a $50,000 discount, it's going to sell in 20 minutes. The buyer demand is so much higher. So you're not only do you have the element of competing against other investors, but you have they're willing to take a lower return. And additionally, you're competing with an end buyer, and an investor is never going to compete with an end buyer, which in the lower tier markets, you're still competing with end buyers, but your quickness of closing and understanding the seller situation, it's easier to navigate, in my opinion, than navigating, an older or person in a distressed situation, but they have 4 kids and they all want top dollar, right? That's never it's going to be extremely difficult to get to the finish line. So these are all challenges that people have to overcome. And the one way to do it is obviously, going out of your backyard.
Right.
Can you speak to that component? Because I know a lot of people, when they first start, there's, it's like a common theme that we've been talking about. It's like this trend to just not invest in your backyard. Going virtual has its challenges, right? Contractors cost, are you buying it right or not? Can you speak to how you've overcome that? And obviously with your experience, it's easier today than it was. But when you made that conscious decision, not only was it, okay, I'm going to, spend my marketing money because I want a return or I want to see more deal flow, but how do you get comfortable with the differences of, the cost, the renovations, the comps and all that good stuff?
Right. So, when I was in 2016, I had to make the decision of, okay, will the amount of hassle and how difficult it will be to try to either run a flipping business or a wholesaling business completely out of state, versus the hassle and, the difficulty, the nights I'm losing sleep because I'm not doing a deal for 3.5 months of California. Like, which one is worse? Like, I was basically going, pick your problem. Because I had both problems. So I was like, all right, which one is the easier problem to have? And for me, I decided that the California problem was really causing me anxiety. Like, it was really difficult to spend that much money and not sleep at night, not knowing if I'm going to get my marketing dollars back. So I decided, all right, let's just see what happens. I had some money, I'd done some flips, so I had money to support myself. I said, let's just figure it out. So it was difficult. There was a lot of trial and error. At the time, there were no virtual coaching programs. So I had to just kind of come up with some ideas myself. There were simple ideas like, okay, so say I can't convince a seller to sign my contract over the phone. They want to meet someone from my company. What can I do? So I developed like the idea of a runner, like a errand runner. And this person would present themselves nicely and they would, dress okay. And they were able to take photos. They could print out my contract. And if the seller asks them any detailed questions, they would get me on the phone. And we would talk via like on the phone, and the person would kind of act as like my representative, So it was little tricks like that, over time I put together. But there was also some game changer tricks that I didn't employ until like 2 years into it, that I was like, man, if I would have known that, I would have been way further off than I am now, The game changers is really partnerships. I call them a JV partner, joint venture partner. JV partners is where you should start from day one. If you want to go virtual, you need to find someone in that territory that has the same goals and values as you. And you want to make sure that they are experienced. It's not a blind leading the blind situation. This is someone who is doing whatever your disposition strategy is. They are doing that. They've done that. They have a ton of experience doing it. So if it's, say that you want to be a wholesaler and your goal is to wholesale 5 deals a month so you can quit your full-time job and you can just wholesale houses, and you have to do it virtually because you live in New York or you live in Miami. Well, you decided your virtual market is Indianapolis. Well, you need to you need to make sure that you have a JV partner in Indianapolis that is currently wholesaling 5 deals a month. And he's excited because he wants to do now 10 with you. So that's the right type of partner you need to find. Not somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, not somebody who says that they know what they're doing because they went to a seminar, but really they've never wholesaled anything. That's the most important thing you want to do, is find that JV partner before anything. Had I done that, I think early on, it would have been a lot easier.
So 2 questions. When you're looking for that JV partner, how do you, or what are some ways that you've found that you're able to validate that they are actually somebody that is doing, the amount of business they're say they're doing, and somebody that you want to partner with and has all those values? And then 2, as somebody that's newer, or somebody that's newer to the market, maybe of experience elsewhere, how can you bring value to that person that they want to work with you? I understand obviously doubling your work, but giving up a cut. What are some of those things that somebody can do?
So the best way to find a good JV partner is relationships. Look for referrals. So go on Facebook, go on the local real estate association that's in that area, or like maybe a Facebook forum that's more a national platform, like a Wholesaling Inc.'s Facebook forum.
Mhm.
And just say, hey guys, I'm looking for somebody in Indianapolis. Ideally, I really want a hustler, somebody that's doing a lot of deals. They are wholesaling homes. Somebody that would want to help move a contract that I have. Tag a friend if you know someone, or DM me if that's you. So I love doing the tag a friend, because then you'll see like the same person might get tagged a couple times and that that's your person.
Mhm.
So that's a great way to get that person. The second part to your question, what was your second question?
How do you convince them to work with you? How do you bring them
Oh,
value because they already have
okay.
an established business?
So you're going to do like what we do all the acquisitions in house. So I'm doing the seller marketing. That's my money. Like I'm
Mhm.
spending that. That person doesn't have to spend anything. So I'm putting up all the money. I'm basically doing all the acquisitions. I get the house under contract over the phone.
Mhm.
And then I only bug them when I need like a price opinion, because ideally, like you shouldn't get good at making offers and understand pricing. Like that's your responsibility. Do not put that on your JV partner, because you will burn that person out and it's going to create a bottleneck to you getting contracts. But you need their help to guide you on how to price homes. So like sit with them for a couple hours and comp homes out like a training day. Like, okay, and as soon as you are comping homes out the same way they are comping houses out, and you're offering the same way they would, then you do it all over the phone. You don't bother them unless you're really stumped on a home with pricing. Or maybe you're close on a contract, but before you get it locked in, you want to ask them, hey, are you cool? Do you think this is a good price? Is this something we can move it at and just get their okay? Then you get it signed. You're handing them a contract. So they didn't have to do any of the acquisitions. Of course it's worth it. I mean, they're getting a free deal handed to them. All they have to do is show their buyers and do the whole disposition side.
Mhm.
So that's really appealing to a lot of investors. It is for me. I mean, we're opening up like our whole disposition side in my business, because our territories, we've gotten pretty good at moving contracts, and now people are coming to us saying, hey, we have a contract, can you help us move it? So we love it. I do that all day long. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's important when you're looking for partnerships or you're looking to work with people, is just trying to reverse engineer what they're looking for and what would help them and what would bring them value. And I think whether you apply it to a joint venture partner, whether you apply it to a vendor bidding out a project, whether you do it for a client you're trying to land, reverse engineering that person and trying to service them is going to be the quickest way to getting a deal done or getting some sort of business done. And it's not always the easiest thing to do. And it's a very tight rope to walk as well. You got to be careful that you don't, underserve yourself by not asking too much of them up front, but also you don't want to stray the other side where they're like, this guy or girl keeps asking me a million questions and they haven't produced anything. And I'm so sick and tired of dealing with them. And I know that's something that I'm always very cognizant of when we have different vendors or contractors look at properties before we put them under contract. I don't want to ask too much of somebody before we even have a viable deal to talk about, because they know we're going to bring a few people out to bid the same project. So even with a deal under contract, they may not get awarded the business. But now we're talking about a deal that's not even under contract yet. It's a very tough balancing act that you got to play of, yeah, you kind of need the information, but you also don't want to ask too much and burn those bridges. So I like your approach of, taking that day or a couple days up front and saying, hey, just setting that expectation up front of saying, hey, I'm going to need 2 days from you, 4 hours a day, 3 hours a day, 6 hours a day. And we're just going to run through pricing strategies and things that you've seen in your market. So I understand I have a good jumping off point, and I'm not going to waste your time in 3 weeks when I've got 10 deals that come into my inbox and I don't have any idea of how to price them. I think that's a terrific strategy, and I'm sure it's helped you and anybody you've worked with, jumpstart their business tremendously.
Yeah, I mean, all of these things were things I did. So I know, I realized like I made these mistakes, and then I was like, okay, well, like I can't do this because the JV partners will just stop answering my calls. So they're all mistakes that I made,
Mhm.
and then I figured it out, and like anything.
Yeah. I think that's actually a decent segue of, I'm sure you've made a ton of mistakes. What are some of the most glaring ones that have hurt you the most, or that you didn't expect to find as you kind of went this virtual route?
In virtual. Yeah, gosh, let me look back. Let me think back. There's several. I don't think I've been asked this question like recently. So I'm like, I don't have my quick answers to that, but I'm like,
That's fine.
what are some notable ones? Okay. One mistake when you're, virtual. In fact, really when you have a team in general, I really believe in every employee that you have really just has one job. Don't don't let them go in too many lanes. There's a few reasons for it. One is that most employees can really only do one job well. They can't really shift gears and be a salesperson who's also doing the dispositions and marketing, who's also like an admin. Like you
Mhm.
can't have a jack of all trades employee. That's like kind of hard. But when it comes to being virtual, the disposition side, there is this phase where first you're working with JV partners, then you don't need the JV as much because you start building your own buyer base,
Mhm.
and you're like kind of in that place of where you're going to break up with your JV, and that's inevitable. It's going to probably happen after maybe 6 to 9 months of doing deals.
Mhm.
And I upfront talk to the JV and let them know that that's going to happen. So there's not like a surprise. They're not like, wait, what? We're not married. Like, no, there's going to be a time that eventually I won't need you, and I will be fine with just a runner. And so the first mistake that I can remember that I got burned pretty bad was I didn't just hire a runner. I hired a girl local to basically be the boots on ground for us. She would advertise the properties. She would walk buyers through them. She was running the errands. Like if a seller didn't have internet or whatever, and like she would, run a contract over there, get them to sign it. She would take in all the offers from buyers. So she was just like, she had a lot of control. She had access to our database. She knew all our systems. Like she was a full-time employee who knew a lot about my business, and she was based very far away from me.
Mhm.
So she was working from home. I couldn't really keep a good eye on her. What she ended up doing was one of my buyers, we had a really great relationship. We kept selling the same people houses because they always had the highest offer. And it was so weird.
Yeah.
You can already see where I'm going with this. So 7 deals later, I realized that she is giving them first right of refusal on everything. And she was working for them. She actually was employed by them as well. So one of my buyers, he was trying to run, he still is, he's trying to run some turnkey operation,
Mhm.
and he needed rental homes like mine. And he did a couple deals. He did a couple honest deals with us. And then he got to know her through the property tours and started taking her to lunch and asking her what we're doing and how are we getting these deals and how can we work together more, and how much does Lauren pay you and how many hours do you work, and maybe I could give you 10 extra hours, and
Mhm.
so she was feeding him all of our deals for a while. And it took a while. I didn't actually know about it until other investors brought it up to me that one of the partners was bragging that he has first right of refusal on all our deals just somewhere at a networking event. It was like just kind of a lucky thing that like someone was like, did you know that like she works for him? And I was like, what?
Yeah.
I was horrified. I was so upset. So I have a rule of thumb that you don't ever let employees have too much access to anything, especially your virtual people.
Mhm.
They do not have access to your database. They don't know how you're getting deals. They don't take in the offers from the buyers. Like literally my boots on ground are like representatives that know nothing about my business. They are just like, they just look nice. They present themselves well. They're professional.
Mm-hmm.
Think like a mobile notary. Like, what is a mobile notary? Does the notary really know like what even a deed is? No, she just knows like sign here and I have to put a stamp on it and give it back to the person. That's it.
No, I think it's important. I think there's a lot of good things that you unpack there, a lot of things that I'm learning as well, just from hiring people of, right people, right seats. And, you can't really give somebody too much to do because it's tough to do everything well. Most people can only do one thing well and do it really good. And when you are kind of building a business and doing different things, you're the person that's trying to do everything. You should then start piecing things off for other people to take things off your plate and not create somebody that's basically going to do the same thing as you, because it just doesn't make sense. So it was interesting to hear you learn that lesson the hard way. And I think the second lesson that's really apparent in anybody that's done this long enough is that real estate, and especially when you start niching down, it's a really tight-knit, small community. And if you're not doing something up to snuff and you're toeing the line and doing some stuff gray, people are going to hear about it, and they're going to hear about it pretty quick. So you learn a lot of what's going on, and word gets around and people talk, and a lot of people got loose lips, and it's just going to get back to you. So that's why I always encourage people to don't focus on the short-term money. Don't focus on the short-term deal. Really think about it on a 3, 5, 10, 20-year horizon, because the people that last longer, the people that do the right thing, say what they're going to do, execute on what they're going to do, and kind of just treat everybody the right way, because it's just going to come back to you at some point. If you pull the wool over somebody's eyes on a couple deals, yeah, okay, you won in 3 deals, but you're not going to get the next 50 over 10 years. So now what do? You just lost your pipeline of deals. So I think it's really interesting to hear, a couple of those things you experience very viscerally, it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sure that, that individual probably would have been better off just saying, hey, listen, we have a great buyer here. They'll buy a ton of deals. If she would have just open and honest about it, maybe you would have wanted a little bit more price or something, but the way it went about it probably didn't help. And virtually it's important because, like, if you're networking in the real estate community, you're dealing with like-minded people. So if there's an entrepreneurial spirit inside there and they have too much access, inevitably, it's a lesson we've all done. I've done it as well, right? Giving people too much, or, paying them a little bit too much on a deal, and it comes back where, oh, look, I don't have to do this for you anymore. I can do it on my own. And everybody does it. I think it's a lesson learned, and a good lesson learned, because, if that never happened, who knows how much money or opportunity you're leaving on the table because someone's taking a little advantage. When it happens, you put a control in place very quickly. So it's an inevitable lesson that it's great to hear. Everyone should hear it, but it's like telling a kid, the candle's hot, right? They're still going to touch it regardless. People are going to get burned, and those are good lessons because, okay, wow, I shouldn't have done that. I knew that, but I thought I knew more than the next person. So it's a valuable lesson that everyone needs to, I think, hear, but I think it resonates more when it happens to you, when instead of just hearing it, because everybody hears war stories, but they don't believe them until they happen. So it's a valuable lesson, but a lesson that I think is better off learned the hard way than, if you listen and you work it, great. But more often than not, people think they're better and smarter than the next person, and they get burned inevitably as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've learned a lot from mistakes. I mean, every mistake, although these are like, I call them 5-figure mistakes, like they cost me a ton of money, but honestly, it's those types of mistakes that have created the hard rules that I've implemented in my business, that I won't ever make those mistakes again. And now, I'm doing so much better because I implemented those hard rules, and I probably would not have figured out those hard rules had the mistake not happened. So now, I mean, my students have the benefit of, I'm giving them the hard rules. Like, I'm saying, these are the rules of the game. Do not deviate from what I say. And if you really want to know why, let me tell you about what happened to me in Oklahoma the one time I did that, or, and I do have stories. I do have reasons behind these hard rules. But it's how you figure things out. It's how you learn and you grow.
Absolutely.
So I have a question. Have you as you've scaled and built, have you hired more people and built a team around you, or have you, done a lot of the stuff on your own and just used those runners in different areas?
So me personally, like I work on my wholesale business like 15 minutes a week. Like I don't do anything anymore. It's fantastic. But I have hired, as I grew, I hired out. So, I mean, starting from maybe my second year in the business, I would hire out whatever I hated doing the most.
Mm-hmm.
Or like whatever I just like didn't have time to do, like I would hire that out. And I actually make like a general life practice on this. Like I hire out everything I hate doing. So like I hate doing my laundry. Someone comes and does my laundry. Like that's how I like everything I hate. I try to like exorcism like out of my life. So like starting with like, once I hit about year 2, I'd done all the facets of the business at this point. So now I'm skilled enough to be able to train someone to do it. So the first thing I hired out was someone to just talk to seller leads. That was my first hire because it was the thing I hated doing the most. I hated talking to sellers. It dragged me down. I have 2 kids. At the time they were babies. So like my cell phone would ring while like my daughter is crying and I'm like giving another one the bottle, and like it would just like give me anxiety. And I was like, if I could just get rid of this anxiety by like having someone else's phone ring, and then like I could then maybe look at the leads once a day when the kids are asleep. I mean, this is how I was doing it back then. Then that's great. That would eliminate some of that anxiety for me. So the first person I hired was like a lead manager. That's what I would call it. That lead manager I taught the lead manager how to make offers. So they really became more of an acquisitions manager. Now, that same acquisitions manager runs my company now. He's been with me for over 4 years. So he's grown totally like the whole way. I mean, we're now going to be business partners by the end of this year. So, but then we hired people under him, right? So then once he, he got tired of doing this and I wanted him to grow out of certain things. Okay, now we hired someone to do the lead manager stuff. And so that's just how it is. Like we basically hire as we go. It's pretty, I feel like the process is pretty organic. I think that the biggest kiss of death I see new students, because I work with so many students in just different, their different areas of their experience levels, I'm trying to say. Sure. The newbies, the biggest kiss of death, I see, like I will literally talk to someone who has done no deals at all. They're fresh out of reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, and they've like listened to some like Bigger Pockets podcasts and Wholesaling podcasts, and they're like, so do you recommend that like I actually do the business first, and I actually get on the phones with sellers and stuff first before I hire a team? And I'm like, so like, have you done any deals? No. You've done no deals at all, and like you want to hire a team right now, like. And I was like, yeah, no, get on the phones. You're not too good for the phones.
That's a huge pet peeve of mine when someone that knows nothing wants to step right into CEO with 40 employees. And I said, you're not going to know if people are doing their job. You're not going to know anything. I said, do 5 transactions and you'll know the business more or less, but you can't just step into the top and not have gone through the process of every role, because you don't know if someone's doing a good job or not. And 100%. It's amazing to me that, I don't know if it's the new generation or just people hear it and it sounds easy, but that conversation I have over and over again with people, and it's just mind blowing that people don't want to get dirty a little bit, right? No. It's like, oh, I'm just going to hire someone to answer the phones for me. Well, how do you know if they're answering them, if they're doing it right? And I don't know why, but people that, I'd say there's no such thing as a stupid question. That happens to be a stupid question. 100.
That is a stupid question.
Yeah, it's just, it makes no sense. It's crazy to me because I agree with the other thing. Make a list of what you like and what you hate. And then when your first hires, work on the what you hate. But if you've never done it, you don't know what you like and you don't know what you hate. So you're going to put someone in a role that, you don't even know what, you don't know. You might love that part of the business and hate the other side. So it's crazy to me.
Yeah. No, I do have a saying for that. So those people are the bright stars, burn out fastest people.
Mhm.
So the people that are like, they come in and they're like, so I'm gonna hire like a team and like I'm gonna do all these deals. Like those are the ones that burn out the fastest. Like those are the ones that usually like bankrupt themselves. So
Yeah, I mean, you see when people have, and it's interesting because there are people that make a living off of doing things like that in other capacities, but typically they're buying a business or they're finding an operating partner that's going to go do it. And the person that isn't really doing the grunt work is bringing like the capital and the connections. Like if you think about it of a Shark Tank or the profit from a very, people understand what that is. Yeah, they may not understand how to, make whatever the hell they come up with because there's so many damn products. But they understand that I have somebody that has been in the trenches, has built this business up, knows it, but I can come into this business and scale it and grow it in a way that they couldn't. And they partner. They don't hire somebody to go out and do it for them without understanding how it works. It's a totally different relationship. So when I hear people that say, oh, I want to come in and hire a team, that's just never going to work. You need somebody that understands the business, understands the relationships between the different facets of the business and how to hire them out and how to fix problems when it breaks down, how to build those systems. Nobody's just going to come in and do it for you and just expect a normal job. Why would they do that? They could just go do it themselves. And none of these things are so capital intensive that somebody couldn't step in and do it themselves, similar to what happened with you with, the woman out in, I think you said Indianapolis or wherever, where, she was working and basically running it for yourself. And she basically, well, I can kind of go do this myself or play both sides. It's not an unsimilar conversation. And I think it's very interesting to hear that now a not unsimilar type person, whether they're local or virtual, over 4 years has now worked themselves up to a place where it's okay. They know what the hell they're doing. They're a true operating partner. And, like you said, you're going to bring them on as a partner because you see it more valuable as that. So it's very interesting for me looking in and hearing your story of how that changed from, one person several years ago to now, a more recent hire and how that's developed. I'm really curious too to hear your opinion because I haven't heard a lot of people build up a business, especially in the real estate, where an employee has eventually become a partner. What has that experience been like for you? What was that conversation like between the two of you? How did it all develop?
Well, I think I just got extremely lucky with the
Mhm.
person that he is. He is like the most honest, ethical guy. And he took a chance on me. He could have made more money. He actually was making more money, at a sales job that he worked at before, but he wanted more work-life balance. He wanted a little bit of a break. So he took a job with me. And I was like, well, you can work from home. And he's very stable. He never calls in sick. I mean, like in 4 years, I don't think the dude ever called in sick, not once. Like
Mhm.
he has no excuses. Like he's just very reliable. He has some strengths that I don't have. He is a lot better at firing people and calling people out that when they're not working, where I kind of give people like benefit of the doubt. And,
Mhm.
like I get kind of like, oh, well, but I really liked her, like I have a hard time with that. Whereas he's a little bit more like, no, like she's not working anymore. So he's got a lot of great skills. After, 4 years, we've not only became good, like I've seen that I can trust him with everything. I mean, he's been tested in so many scenarios where he could have lied about things. He could have, easily taken advantage of situations, but he never did. He's always honest. So, I mean, he's moving a lot of money around in my company. He's in control of everything. I mean, he
Mhm.
locks up all the deals and he doesn't ask me, hey, is it okay? I mean, he's a signer of my LLC. So we're not there anymore where, hey, Lauren, is it okay if I take this offer? Our fee is going to be 13,500. Is that okay? Or do you want me to get more? I say, I gave it to him. Like, you can make that decision. So, I mean, when you get to that level with somebody, an employee, There's a certain point for me when Wholesaling Inc. approached me to be a coach. I knew that that was going to be a big undertaking, and I was going to have a lot of my time split between both companies now.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed to, they told me, get your other company where it's practically running itself. Like if you need to hire like a COO type person, or you need to train someone up to basically replace you, like do that now. So in, a few months, I trained him really like heavy on like, hey, you're going to have like all the responsibility of this company. And, he's being compensated for it. And so I can focus my, efforts on coaching students and getting my students deals. That's my priority right now, is getting other people deals and making sure other people are succeeding with my coaching program. So that was the evolution of it. And now, I mean, it's great. It does. There are times where I get a moment of panic because I'm like, oh, I haven't checked in. My LLC is called TMF Real Estate. I'm like, I haven't checked in with TMF at all. Like I haven't even I've not at all looked at like our CRM. I've not looked at like how many deals. And then I'll look and I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. We've got like 5 closing in the next couple weeks. Like we've got a steady trickle of like closings. We're good. Or I see my FedEx envelopes coming at my door, and I'm like, wow, okay. It's still running itself. So, the next venture that we're looking into right now, is instead of wholesaling, we want to now buy and hold and acquire as a company.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I cannot do that without a partner. Like if there's one mistake I'm not going to make twice, is I'm not going to go in it all alone anymore. I started this business by myself, like a, mom of 2 little kids. And I was like, I'm going to do this all by myself. Like I'm not going to have partners because I'm a female businesswoman. Like I could prove that we could do this. Like some of it was a little bit of like, I think, I don't want to say like arrogance, but more inferiority complex.
Mm-hmm.
When I first got started in the business, I was working with my brother. He's the one who taught me, and we did 2 deals together. And then I went off and did the rest on my own. And a lot of people would assume it was like, oh, so do you still work for your brother? I got asked that question at family parties for 3 years after. Like, oh, so you work with or for your brother. You work for your brother. And so I think there was this little thing in me that was like, you guys,
mm-hmm.
But contrary to what you might believe, but a woman can also own a business too. Isn't that funny? What a concept. So who would have thought? So like I was spending the first like several years just proving to other people that, oh no, I can own my own business. Well, although like maybe, yeah, sure. Like I proved them wrong, but I actually hurt myself
mm-hmm.
in the process, because I would have been a lot further along had I partnered with, someone that was, doing maybe 50 flips a year in California, when it was easy to do that. Cause there was a time I was in that business
mm-hmm.
where it was easier, like post-recession. Probably could have retired. So I'm not that person anymore. I now really do see the benefits of collaboration and having partners and spreading out the work.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody has their roles. Everybody has their lanes. So I've brought in, his name is Hai. I told Hai, I said, we're, instead of wholesaling these things, I think we need to take them down as rentals. And if we're going to do that, like I'm going to need you to manage the acquisition process of it. And that you're going to have an ownership in it.
Mm-hmm.
So he's basically, I was like, think of this as like, this is your retirement fund. Like you're going to have an ownership. I'm going to front the money. I'll put the loans, like I'll handle all the money and the capital and all that. You're going to handle like acquiring it, making sure that it meets our criteria, making sure that they're, ready, they're profitable, all that. If he has to travel, he's traveling. I can't travel because I've got the kids. So yeah, I'm not making that mistake again.
I love it. What was it like for you? Like what helped you transition from that, let's say that ego of, I'm going to prove everyone wrong. I'm going to be, a woman entrepreneur and I'm going to do it myself. And, I don't need that help, to understanding the value of partnerships and maybe caring less about what other people think of what you're doing? I really let that go about a year ago. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it took me a while. Okay. Like it took me a long time, but like I let go of the whole partnership, fear or aversion to having a partner about a year ago when I started networking with different people in the education space,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone in the education space had partners. And these were all guys that, were doing, they had $1 million wholesale operations or plus, but they all had partners. And I realized like, it's really like, it's not competition, it's collaboration. Like you put two heads together, you're way better off than just one.
Mm-hmm.
When I got the opportunity to become a coach, it was another educator that gave me the idea. And he was like, there's not a lot of virtual courses, like, and virtual is like this buzzword right now. You should come out with a virtual course because you're like the only person I know that's actually really doing it. And like, you've got a good story, like you should come out with a course. I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it. And again, I was like, I'll do it and I'll sell it on my own. Like I'm going to do it all on my own. And then I was approached by Wholesaling Inc. and they were like, or you can team up with us and get on our team and we will cut that learning curve for you, because being an educator, there's a learning curve to that,
Mm-hmm.
that you don't even know yet. Like you don't even know what you don't know. And I was like, it was like, it took me back in time. I went in like a time machine, and it was 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm going to do this all on my own. And I was like, nope. I'm gonna cut 8 years out and maybe like turn that into like 2.
Sure.
And join a company that knows what they're doing, has a platform, has a sales team, has a marketing department. Like, forget it. Like, I'm not making the same mistake twice. And I mean, isn't that like being a business owner, being an entrepreneur? You don't make the same mistake twice,
Yeah. You're going to make mistakes and that happens. But if you make the same one over and over again, you're not paying attention. And that's where, that's where your profitability will go out the doors, when you make the same mistake over and over again. And even realizing at that point in time, like, wait, time machine, hold on. I've done this before and I'm successful, but I can add gasoline to the fire quicker as opposed to banging my head against the wall. And I think that's a very important lesson that people don't realize. You can make a ton of money partnering, and I've had investors tell me all the time, would you rather own 100% of $1 million deal or 1% of $100 million deal, right? Same thing. But if you could do 10 of the other deals, it's better than just having all your eggs in one basket. So I believe in it too. We JV with a ton of people. We have no problem with that. And it just opens up the doors for opportunities, and you never know what that next opportunity is going to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think so much too that I've heard, and I think a lot of it comes back to just self-awareness of who you are. Because I think what could have very easily happened is, there are pros and cons to doing, let's say, a coaching course on yourself or doing it with someone else. But you had the self-awareness to understand that when I tried to do it by myself, there were some cons that I didn't like. And for me, the self-awareness is that the pros of going with this company that has all these resources already set up outweighs all the cons of doing it on my own. And I think it's so important for people to understand when they listen to any of our podcasts or anybody else speak, it's the self-awareness of taking what people are saying and extrapolating the important information and then applying it to yourself. We batch record podcasts. We had 2 other today, and I'm on a mini kick, which is converse to what we've been talking about of not investing out of state, because I think interesting, like you said, it has been a buzzword of virtual, out of state, all that stuff. And now for me, it's still very viable. And there's so many people that I think it is right for. It's what we do. It's what you do. It works for a lot of people. However, I do feel there's a slight tip in the wrong direction of people that don't need to do it, that are in really great markets, that have the ability to do it more local, don't have to do it, but are using it as a way to, feel like they're doing something, analysis paralysis, have a reason to not put the work in and the energy in our location. Like, I'm always very clear when I talk about when I failed at flipping in Long Island. It was lack of execution, and we didn't do it for long enough. We've met tons of people through this podcast and other thing that are very incredibly successful at flipping and wholesaling in the Long Island tri-state area. And I'm sure you know people that are still doing it in California and it works for them. It's not impossible. So it needs to be said that you have to understand who you are, what your situation is, and what you're looking for, and just take everything with you. So it was great to hear you see the same mistake and understand yourself and what you were looking for, and take the mistake that you had felt like you had made and correct it when that second similar opportunity came around.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
Not making the same mistake twice.
Exactly. I think that's a great place to wrap up. I want to stay cognizant of time. Lauren, I can't thank you enough. I think this was an awesome episode. I definitely learned a couple of things. It was very interesting and exciting to hear your story and experiences. If people want to get in touch with you, learn more about you, follow along, connect with you, where can they do all that?
I think the best place is the social networks. So my handle on Instagram is This Mom Flips.
Mm-hmm.
And on Facebook, it's Lauren Hardy. This Mom Flips, I put a lot of I do a lot of, cool information, cool content, videos, things like that. So if you guys like YouTube videos, I'm also on the Wholesaling Inc. YouTube channel. I've got videos there, and I host the podcast as well. If anybody's interested in the coaching program, they can apply at virtualinvestingmastery.com.
Beautiful. And what's the name of the podcast?
Wholesaling Inc.
Beautiful. Just wanted to make sure it was the same. Guys, definitely go check it out. Go follow. I follow her on a couple of them, and I really enjoy it. So make sure you go do that. And thank you guys for listening to this episode. If you're not already subscribed, it would mean the world to John and I. If you are already subscribed, please send it to somebody you know, a friend, a family member, a colleague, random person you met on the street that you think would get a ton of value and information from this podcast and this episode. Lauren, once again, thank you so much for coming on. Can't thank you enough.